The champagne glass shattered against marble as Mary Thompson's hand connected with his face, the sharp crack echoing through Seoul's most exclusive charity gala. Minho didn't flinch, even as blood trickled from his split lip, even as 300 of Korea's elite gasped in collective shock. His dark eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch, made something primal and terrifying unfurl in her chest. She just slapped the most dangerous man in South Korea, the Mafia boss whose name made grown men tremble, and instead of fury in his gaze, she saw hunger, recognition, possession. His voice dropped to a whisper only she could hear, rough with promise and threat intertwined. Once I'm inside you, the only thing you'll remember is wanting more. Mary's world tilted sideways as his words branded themselves into her soul, as something impossible awakened between them, dark and irrevocable and absolutely inescapable. Welcome to Afrokorean Central, besties. Please like, share and subscribe. 3 hours earlier, Mary had arrived at the Peninsula Hotel ballroom wearing confidence like armor. Her curves wrapped in emerald silk that cost 2 months of her journalist's salary. She'd spent 6 months investigating the Kong crime family, 6 months building sources and gathering evidence, 6 months preparing to publish the exposé that would make her career. Tonight was supposed to be reconnaissance, nothing more. Watch Minho from a distance, document his associates, gather final details. She hadn't planned on him noticing her existence. The ballroom glittered with old money and new power, crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light across faces Mary recognized from her research. Politicians whose campaigns Minho funded. Businessmen whose companies laundered his money. Society wives who pretended not to know where their husbands' wealth originated. Mary accepted champagne from a passing waiter and positioned herself near a marble column, notebook hidden in her clutch, camera disguised as jewelry around her neck. That's when she felt it. The weight of his attention like a physical touch across her skin. Mary turned slowly, scanning the crowd, and found him. Minho stood 30 feet away, surrounded by men in expensive suits, but his eyes were locked on her with an intensity that made her pulse spike dangerously. He was taller than his surveillance photos suggested, broader through the shoulders. His face more brutally beautiful in person. Sharp cheekbones, full lips, eyes that seemed to see straight through her careful disguise to the woman underneath. Their gazes held for 3 heartbeats. For 5. Mary couldn't look away, couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the sudden certainty that she'd made a terrible mistake coming here tonight. Then someone spoke to him and the connection broke. Minho turned away, but Mary saw his jaw clench, saw his hand tighten around his whiskey glass hard enough she thought it might shatter. She needed air. Mary wove through the crowd toward the balcony, her skin too hot, her dress suddenly too tight. The night air hit her face like a blessing when she stepped outside. Seoul's skyline spreading below in a carpet of lights. She gripped the railing and tried to steady her breathing, tried to remember why she was here, what she was risking. You're either very brave or very stupid. His voice came from behind her, accented English wrapped around each word like silk over steel. I haven't decided which yet. Mary spun around. Minho stood in the balcony doorway, blocking her only exit. His presence somehow larger in the intimate space. He'd removed his suit jacket, his white shirt stark against his skin, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms corded with muscle and marked with ink that disappeared beneath the fabric. I could say the same about you. Mary forced her voice steady even as her heart hammered. Following strange women onto dark balconies. Dangerous habit for a man with your reputation. Something flickered in his expression. Amusement maybe, or intrigue. So you know who I am. Everyone in Seoul knows who you are, Mr. Kong. The question is whether you know who I am. He moved closer, each step deliberate, predatory. Mary Thompson, 28 years old. Investigative journalist for the Seoul Tribune. Moved to Korea 3 years ago from London. Lives alone in Itaewon. Drinks her coffee black with 2 sugars. Runs every morning at 6. Has been following my organization for 6 months. He stopped inches from her, close enough she could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. Did I miss anything? Ice flooded Mary's veins. He knew. He'd known all along, and he'd let her continue, let her think she was clever, let her dig deeper until she was in too deep to escape. Are you going to kill me? Kill you? Minho's laugh was dark, dangerous. No, Mary. I'm going to do something much worse. I'm going to make you understand that everything you think you know about me is wrong. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with shocking gentleness. And then I'm going to make you mine. Mary's body betrayed her, leaning into his touch even as her mind screamed warnings. I'm not some possession you can claim. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. His other hand settled on her waist, fingers spreading across silk and the curves beneath. But not for the reasons you think. You should be afraid of how much I want you. How much I've wanted you since the moment I saw you at that press conference 2 months ago, standing in the back with fire in your eyes, asking questions no one else dared ask. His forehead dropped to rest against hers, his breath warm against her lips. You should be afraid of how far I'm willing to go to keep you. This is insane. You don't even know me. I know you're brilliant, fearless, beautiful enough to stop my heart. I know you see people, really see them, not just their surface. His grip tightened possessively. I know you're standing here in my arms when you should be running, and that tells me everything I need to know. Mary's hands had somehow found their way to his chest, feeling his heartbeat thunder beneath her palms. This was wrong, dangerous, professional suicide. She should push him away, should leave, should remember why she'd spent 6 months building a case against him. But his touch made her forget everything except the heat pooling low in her belly, the way her body came alive under his attention. I have questions, she managed, trying to salvage some sense of control. About your operations. About the allegations. Ask them. Minho's lips brushed her temple, her cheek, the corner of her mouth. I'll tell you everything. Every truth. Every lie. Every secret. His mouth hovered over hers, not quite touching, driving her insane with wanting. But first, let me show you what I'm willing to give up for you. He kissed her and Mary's world caught fire. His mouth was demanding, possessive, claiming her with a thoroughness that made her knees weak. She kissed him back with equal desperation, her fingers fisting in his shirt, her body pressing against his with a need that terrified her. This was madness. This was perfect. This was everything she hadn't known she'd been searching for. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Minho rested his forehead against hers. Come with me. Not back to the party. Away from here. Let me show you who I really am. Every logical part of Mary's brain screamed that this was a trap, that she was playing into his hands, that she'd lose everything she'd worked for. But looking into his eyes, seeing vulnerability beneath the dangerous exterior, feeling her body respond to his nearness like metal to magnet, she knew she was already lost. One night, she whispered. You have one night to convince me you're not the monster my research says you are. Minho's smile was fierce, triumphant. I won't need a whole night. But I'll take it anyway. Later that night, Mary sat in the passenger seat of Minho's Mercedes as it climbed into the hills above Seoul, city lights falling away behind them. He drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting possessively on her thigh, his thumb drawing absent circles that sent electricity up her spine. They hadn't spoken since leaving the hotel through a private entrance, but the silence between them hummed with tension and unspoken promises. The car turned onto a private road, security gates opening automatically. Mary caught glimpses of the property through the trees, modern architecture and glass, money and power made tangible. But when Minho finally parked in front of the main house, she saw something unexpected in the warm light spilling from the windows, in the carefully tended gardens, in the way he touched her lower back as he guided her toward the entrance. This wasn't a cold bachelor's fortress. This was a home. Inside, the house was beautiful but lived in. Books stacked on tables. A jacket thrown over a chair. Photos on the mantel that Mary wanted to examine closer. Minho led her to a sitting room overlooking the valley, floor-to-ceiling windows framing Seoul like a painting. He poured whiskey into 2 glasses and handed her one before settling onto the couch beside her, close but not crowding. "My father built this house," he said quietly, staring into his drink. "Before the Kong family became what it is now. Before we were criminals and monsters. When we were just immigrants trying to survive in a country that didn't want us." He looked at her, his expression raw. "Everything you've uncovered about my organization is true. The money laundering, the protection rackets, the violence, all of it. But the story isn't as simple as good versus evil." Mary set down her glass, her journalist instincts warring with something softer, more dangerous. "Then tell me the real story." Minho talked for hours. About his father who'd come to Korea with nothing and built a small business, only to be crushed by established families who saw immigrants as threats. About debts and desperation and the day his father made a deal with the wrong people. About watching his family's legitimate business be destroyed. About his mother's death from stress and heartbreak. About the teenager who decided that if the world saw him as a criminal anyway, he'd become the most powerful one they'd ever seen. "I took over the organization when I was 23, Minho continued, his voice heavy with history. "Youngest boss in the family's history. Everyone expected me to be weak, to be overwhelmed. Instead, I consolidated power, eliminated rivals, built something that couldn't be touched. But every day, I became less human and more weapon." His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "Until you. Why me?" Mary's voice came out smaller than intended. "Why now?" "Because you looked at me and saw a person worth questioning instead of a monster worth fearing. Because you're fighting for truth in a city built on lies. Because when you walked into that press conference, I felt something I thought I'd killed years ago." He turned to face her fully, his free hand cupping her face. "Hope. The possibility that maybe I could be more than what I've become. That maybe someone could see past the blood and the darkness to whatever's left of the man I might have been." Mary's breath caught. This wasn't the confession she'd expected. This was vulnerability from someone who showed the world only strength, truth from someone whose life depended on deception. "What do you want from me?" "Everything." Minho's thumb traced her lower lip, his eyes darkening with desire and something deeper. "Your time, your trust, your body, your heart. I want to tear down every wall you've built, learn every secret you hide, possess every piece of you until there's no part of Mary Thompson that isn't also mine." His grip tightened possessively. "But more than that, I want to be worthy of you. I want to become the man you see when you look at me with those eyes that cut through every defense I've ever built." "That's terrifying," Mary whispered, even as her body leaned into his touch. "You're terrifying." "Good. Be terrified. Be smart enough to know I'm dangerous." His mouth hovered over hers. "But stay anyway. Take the risk. Let me prove that some monsters are worth saving." When he kissed her this time it was different. Slower. Deeper. A claiming and a surrender all at once. Mary's hand slid into his hair, pulling him closer, and Minho groaned against her mouth, his control visibly fraying. His hands roamed her body with increasing urgency, learning her curves, finding the zipper of her dress and drawing it down with aching slowness. "Tell me to stop," he breathed against her neck, his teeth grazing her pulse point. "Tell me this is moving too fast and I'll stop. We'll wait. I'll do anything you need. Don't stop." Mary arched into him, her dress sliding down to pool at her waist. "Don't you dare stop." What followed was a blur of sensation and emotion too intense to process. Minho carried her to his bedroom, laying her on silk sheets with a reverence that made tears prick her eyes. He undressed her slowly, worshipping every inch of revealed skin with his mouth. His hands whispered words in Korean that sounded like prayers. When he finally settled between her thighs, when their bodies joined with a perfection that stole her breath, Mary understood why this felt different from anything she'd experienced before. This wasn't just physical. This was a claiming on every level, body and soul, and something deeper she couldn't name. Minho moved inside her with controlled power, watching her face like he was memorizing every expression, every gasp, every moment of pleasure he gave her. And when they finally shattered together, when his name tore from her throat and hers from his, Mary knew with terrifying certainty that nothing would ever be the same. Afterward, they lay tangled together, sweat-slicked and breathing hard. Minho's arms wrapped around her possessively, one hand splayed across her stomach, his face buried in her neck. "You're mine now," he murmured against her skin. "I don't care how long it takes to make you believe it. You're mine and I'm yours, and nothing is going to change that." Mary should have argued. Should have reminded him they'd known each other for hours, not years. Should have protected her heart from the inevitable pain. Instead, she turned in his arms and kissed him softly, letting herself believe, just for tonight, that monsters could be redeemed and journalists could fall for their subjects and love could conquer the darkness between them. The following morning, Mary woke alone. Sunlight streamed through unfamiliar windows, silk sheets tangled around her naked body, the space beside her still warm but empty. Reality crashed back with brutal force. She'd slept with her investigation subject. She'd compromised her objectivity, her ethics, her entire career. She'd let herself be seduced by pretty words and dangerous promises. Panic clawed up her throat. Mary grabbed her dress from where it lay crumpled on the floor, not bothering with a zipper, just needing to cover herself, to escape before Minho returned, and she did something even more stupid like believe his confession from last night had been real. She found her shoes, her clutch, and ran. The house was silent as she fled through hallways that all looked the same, desperately searching for the exit. She finally found the front door, burst through it, and stopped dead. Minho stood beside his car in the driveway, phone pressed to his ear, his expression cold and businesslike. This was the Mafia boss, the criminal, the monster her research had uncovered. Not the vulnerable man from last night who'd confessed his fears and kissed her like she was oxygen. He looked up, saw her disheveled and fleeing, and his expression shuttered completely. He ended his call with a curt word in Korean and walked toward her with predatory purpose. Going somewhere. Home. This was a mistake. Last night was a mistake. Mary's voice shook despite her best efforts. You got what you wanted. You seduced the journalist, compromised my investigation, probably ruined my career. Congratulations. Something dangerous flashed in Minho's eyes. Is that what you think last night was? A manipulation? What else could it be? You knew exactly who I was, exactly what I was doing. You played me perfectly. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. I'm such an idiot. I actually believed you. Believed what? His voice was deadly quiet now. That you felt something. That you wanted me for more than just neutralizing a threat. Mary laughed bitterly. But that's what I am, right? Problem to be solved. And you solved it by getting me into your bed, making me care, making me compromise everything I stand for. Minho closed the distance between them in 3 strides, his hands gripping her shoulders. Listen to me very carefully. Last night was the most real thing I've experienced in a decade. Everything I told you was truth. Every touch, every word, every promise. His jaw clenched. But you're right about one thing. You being here is dangerous. Not because I want to silence you, but because my enemies will use you against me the moment they realize what you've become to me. And what have I become? Everything. The word was raw, desperate. My weakness. My vulnerability. The one thing in this world I can't protect through violence and power, because protecting you means letting you close enough to destroy me. His forehead dropped against hers. So yes, you should run. You should go back to your safe life and forget you ever met me. Because staying means entering a world where people die for being connected to me, where love is a weapon and trust is suicide. Mary's hands came up to grip his wrists, holding on even as her brain screamed to let go. What if I don't want safe? What if I want the truth, the whole truth, even if it's dangerous? Then you're as insane as I am. Minho's laugh was harsh. And I'm selfish enough to keep you anyway. They stood there in the morning sunlight, suspended between running and staying, between safety and danger, between the smart choice and the one that felt like destiny. Then Mary's phone rang, shattering the moment. She fumbled for it in her clutch, saw her editor's name, and her stomach dropped. I have to take this. She stepped back from Minho's arms, from his warmth, from the temptation to forget the world existed. Hello. Mary, thank God. Where are you? We've been trying to reach you all night. Her editor's voice was tight with urgency. Someone leaked your investigation. Photos of you with Kong Minho are all over the internet. The paper is pulling your story, legal is having a meltdown, and there are about 50 reporters camped outside your apartment demanding a statement. The world tilted sideways. Mary's legs went weak, her vision graying at the edges. Minho caught her before she fell. His arm steel around her waist. His free hand taking the phone from her nerveless fingers. This is Kong Minho, he said into the phone. His voice cold authority. Mary is safe. She's with me. And whoever leaked those photos is going to regret it. He ended the call and looked down at her. Someone's trying to destroy both of us. The question is who and why. Mary's mind raced through possibilities even as her career imploded around her. Your rivals. They want to discredit both of us, make it look like I was compromised from the start, that my investigation was personal vendetta instead of journalism. Or someone in your own organization who doesn't want the truth published. Minho's expression was grim. Either way, you're not safe at your apartment. You're staying here until we figure this out. I can't just hide. My reputation, my career, everything I've worked for is being destroyed right now. Then we go on offense. Minho pulled out his phone, already typing. I have resources you can't imagine. We'll find who leaked those photos, who's orchestrating this, and we'll bury them so deep they'll never see daylight again. He looked at her, his eyes fierce. But first you need to decide. Are you with me or against me? 'Cause there's no middle ground anymore. We're either partners in this or we're enemies. Mary thought about her apartment full of research, her carefully built case, 6 months of work that should have made her career. She thought about her editor's disappointment, her colleagues' whispers, the professional death she could see coming. Then she looked at Minho, at the man who'd shown her vulnerability and truth in equal measure, who'd claimed her body and apparently her heart in the span of one night, and she knew there was only one answer. Partners, she said, and watched relief flood his expression. But I have conditions. Full transparency. Access to everything. And if I find out you're lying to me about anything, I walk and I publish everything I know. Done. Minho pulled her close. His lips finding hers in a kiss that tasted like promises and danger. Welcome to my world, Mary Thompson. Try not to get killed. By the end of the week, Mary had moved from observer to participant in Minho's empire, and the transformation was dizzying. He'd been true to his word about transparency, showing her books, introducing her to his inner circle, explaining operations with the same thoroughness he'd once used to build them. What she discovered challenged everything she thought she knew. Yes, the Kong organization was involved in illegal activities. But they also protected Korean immigrant communities that the police ignored, provided interest-free loans to small businesses the banks rejected, and enforced a code that prohibited drugs, human trafficking, and violence against civilians. Minho ruled with an iron fist, but it was a fist that punished exploiters and defended the vulnerable in ways the legal system never had. It's still illegal, Mary said one evening as they reviewed financial records in his study. You're still operating outside the law. And the law has failed the people I protect. Minho looked up from his laptop. His expression serious. I'm not claiming moral high ground. I'm claiming necessity. When the system abandons entire communities, someone has to step in. I chose to be that someone. Mary wanted to argue, wanted to maintain her black and white worldview where criminals were simply criminals. But she'd spent the week meeting the people Minho's organization helped, seeing the schools his money funded, the businesses his protection allowed to thrive. The truth was messier than she'd expected, And so was her growing attachment to the man behind it all. That evening everything changed again. Mary was alone in Minho's house, reviewing notes when the power cut out. Darkness swallowed the room, broken only by moonlight through the windows. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number containing a single photo that made her blood run cold. It was her younger sister Charlotte, bound and gagged, terror clear in her eyes. The message that followed was simple and devastating. You have 2 hours to deliver Minho to the address below. Alone. Or your sister dies. Mary's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. Charlotte was supposed to be safe in London, finishing university, living a normal life far from Mary's dangerous investigation. How had they found her? How had they gotten to her so fast? She called Minho, her voice breaking as she explained. He was back in 15 minutes, his security team mobilizing. His expression colder than she'd ever seen it. This is the Choi family, he said, studying the photo with calculating eyes. They're trying to draw me out, use you to get to me. It's exactly what I warned you about. I don't care about warnings. They have my sister. Mary grabbed his arm, desperation clawing at her throat. Please. I know you have resources, connections. Please help me get her back. Something softened in Minho's expression. He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. I will get your sister back. Promise you that. But we do this my way with my people, following my plan. You trust me? Yes. The word came without hesitation, and Mary realized it was true. Somewhere in the past week, trust had snuck past her defenses. Good. Then let's go to war. What followed was the longest 2 hours of Mary's life. Minho's team moved with military precision, tracking Charlotte's location through methods Mary didn't ask about, assembling a rescue operation that looked more like a special forces mission than a criminal enterprise. Throughout it all, Minho kept Mary close, his hand finding hers whenever her panic threatened to overwhelm her. She'll be okay, he murmured as they drove toward the warehouse district where Charlotte was being held. I won't let anything happen to her. I promise. Why are you doing this? Mary asked. You could just let them have me, solve your problem, eliminate a threat. Minho looked at her like she'd lost her mind. You're not a problem to be eliminated. Mine. And anyone who touches what's mine answers to me. His grip tightened possessively. Your sister is yours, which makes her mine too. Family now. Under my protection whether she knows it or not. The rescue happened fast and violent. Minho's team breached the warehouse with brutal efficiency while he kept Mary in the car, one hand on his gun. His body positioned between her and any potential threat. Through the tinted windows, she saw flashes of movement, heard sounds she'd spent years trying to forget. Then Minho was helping Charlotte into the back seat, the younger woman sobbing and shaking but alive, unhurt beyond some rope burns and the psychological trauma. Mary pulled her sister close, whispering reassurances, while Minho gave quiet orders in Korean to his security team. The drive back was silent except for Charlotte's occasional sobs. When they arrived at Minho's house, he called his personal doctor to examine Charlotte while Mary held her sister's hand, guilt and relief warring in her chest. I'm so sorry, Mary whispered. This is my fault. If I hadn't gotten involved with Minho, if I'd just stayed away. Don't. Minho's voice cut through her spiral. He'd dismissed everyone else, leaving just the 3 of them in the sitting room. This isn't your fault. It's mine. My enemies did this. My life brought this danger. But I'm going to make sure it never happens again. Charlotte looked between them, her tear-stained face showing confusion and dawning understanding. You're together. You and him. The Mafia boss. It's complicated, Mary started, but Minho interrupted. Not complicated. I love your sister. She's mine and I'm hers, and that means you're under my protection now too. Permanent protection. I'm arranging for you to finish your degree here in Seoul, in a secured apartment, with security that will make sure this never happens again. I don't want to be a prisoner, Charlotte said quietly. You won't be. You'll be family. Minho's expression gentled. I know this is overwhelming. I know you have questions about who I am and what I do. But I need you to trust that keeping you safe is now one of my highest priorities. Not because I want something from you, but because you matter to Mary and Mary matters to me more than anything in this world. Charlotte looked at her sister. Do you trust him? Mary thought about the past week, about vulnerability and violence, about a man who'd shown her truth in a world built on lies. Yes, I trust him. Later that night, after Charlotte was settled in a guest room with a security guard outside her door, Mary found Minho on the terrace overlooking the valley. He stood at the railing, tension radiating from every line of his body. She approached slowly, her hand finding his back, and felt him relax under her touch. Thank you, she said softly, for saving her, for protecting her, for keeping your promise. Minho turned, pulling her into his arms. I told you. Mine. Everything that matters to you matters to me. Your sister's safety, your career, your happiness. His hands framed her face. I know this week has been insane. I know you've had to rethink everything you believed. But I need you to know something. What? I'm in love with you. Completely. Irreversibly. In a way that terrifies me because I've never needed anything the way I need you. His thumb traced her lower lip. And I know it's too fast. I know we've only known each other for days, but I've never been more certain of anything. You're it for me. The only person who makes me want to be better than what I am. Mary's breath caught. This was insanity. This was beautiful. This was everything she'd never let herself want. I love you too. It's completely irrational and probably professional suicide and definitely dangerous, but I love you. When they came together this time, it was different from their first night. Slower, deeper. A claiming and a surrender and a promise all at once. They made love on the terrace under the stars, Minho's body covering hers. His hands gentle despite the possession in his touch. His whispered words a mix of Korean and English that made her heart soar. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, Mary let herself believe that maybe love could survive in the darkness, that maybe she'd found something worth the risk, that maybe choosing him meant choosing the most honest version of herself she'd ever been. What happens now? She asked against his chest. With the photos, the investigation, my career? Now we control the narrative. Minho's fingers traced patterns on her back. You publish your story but with full context. The truth about my organization, about what we actually do, about the communities we protect. You maintain your integrity as a journalist while showing the world that morality isn't as black and white as they want to believe. And us. What do we tell the world about us? The truth. His arms tightened. That you came to investigate me and ended up saving me instead. That I was a monster becoming more human because someone finally looked at me and saw a man worth redeeming. That we're together and anyone who has a problem with it can take it up with me personally. Mary smiled despite the chaos surrounding them. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. I want you. You want me. Everything else is just logistics. He kissed her forehead, her nose, her lips. Stay with me. Live here. Let me protect you and Charlotte. Let me love you the way you deserve. Let me prove every day that choosing me was the smartest decision you ever made. That's a lot of letting, Mary teased, but her heart was already saying yes. Then let me add one more thing. Minho shifted, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box that made Mary's heart stop. Let me marry you. Make you mine in every way that matters. Give you my name, my protection, my entire world. He opened the box to reveal a ring that took her breath away. Simple. Elegant. Perfect. I know it's insane. I know we've only known each other for a week. But I've never been more certain of anything. Marry me, Mary. Choose me. Choose this impossible, dangerous, beautiful thing between us. Mary looked at the ring, at the man offering it, at the future she could see spreading before them, complicated and thrilling and utterly terrifying. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was too fast, too dangerous, too impossible to work. But looking into Minho's eyes, seeing truth and love and desperate hope, Mary knew there was only one answer her heart would accept. "Yes," she whispered, watching joy transform his expression. "Yes, I'll marry you." The next morning, Mary woke to find Minho gone but a note on his pillow written in his precise handwriting. "Meeting with family council about our engagement. Back soon. Don't leave the house. I love you." She touched the ring on her finger, still not quite believing yesterday had been real, that she'd agreed to marry a man she'd met a week ago, that her life had transformed so completely in such a short time. Charlotte found her in the kitchen an hour later, looking more rested but still shaken. The younger woman accepted coffee and settled across from Mary with an expression that demanded answers. "Oh, you're engaged to a Mafia boss. After knowing him for like 5 minutes. 6 days actually," Mary corrected, then laughed at how ridiculous it sounded. "I know it's insane. Trust me, I know. But Charlotte, when I'm with him, everything makes sense in a way nothing else ever has. He sees me. Really sees me. And he's not the monster I thought he was. He's still dangerous. He still kills people. His enemies kidnapped me to get to you." Charlotte's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm not saying don't marry him. I'm saying make sure you understand what you're signing up for." "I do understand. Better than you think." Mary reached across the table to take her sister's hand. "But I also understand that he's the only person who's ever made me want to be brave enough to choose the impossible thing. To risk everything for something that might be extraordinary." Charlotte studied her sister's face, seeing something there that made her smile despite everything. "You really love him." "I really do. It's terrifying and probably stupid and absolutely real." Mary squeezed her hand. "But I need to know you're okay with this. You're my only family. Your opinion matters." "I'm okay with it. Scared for you but okay with it." Charlotte's smile widened. "Besides, having a Mafia boss as a brother-in-law might come in handy if I ever have ex-boyfriend problems." They were laughing when Minho returned, his expression tight with tension that eased slightly when he saw them. "Good. You're both awake. We need to talk. All of us." He led them to his study where 3 other people waited. An older Korean woman with shrewd eyes and expensive clothes sat in the leather chair like a throne. 2 men flanked her, one middle-aged and stern, one younger with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mary felt Charlotte press closer to her side as Minho made introductions. "This is my mother, Kong Ji-soo. My uncle Kong Tae-jun. And my cousin Kong Woo-jin. They're the family council, the leadership of our organization beyond just me." He moved to stand beside Mary, his hand finding hers in a clear statement of unity. "I've called them here to make an announcement. Mary and I are engaged. We're getting married as soon as possible. And she and her sister are now under family protection." The silence that followed was deafening. Jisoo's eyes raked over Mary with an assessment that felt like being dissected. Taejun's expression remained neutral, giving nothing away. But Woojin's smile sharpened into something ugly. "You're marrying the journalist who's been investigating us?" Woojin's laugh was condescending. "The one whose exposé was supposed to destroy everything we've built. Are you completely insane?" "Watch your tone." Minho's voice dropped to something dangerous. "You're talking about my future wife. I'm talking about a security risk." Woojin stood, his posture aggressive. "She spent 6 months digging into our operations. How do we know this isn't just another angle? How do we know she won't gather intel from the inside and publish everything the moment she has what she needs?" "Because I trust her." Minho's hand tightened on Mary's. "And my judgment should be enough." "Your judgment has been compromised." This came from Taejun, his voice measured but firm. "We understand attraction. We understand wanting to protect someone. But marriage, bringing her into the family, that requires more than just feelings." Jisoo finally spoke, her voice carrying the weight of decades of power. "Tell me, Mary Thompson, why should I allow my son to marry you? What do you bring to this family besides danger and complications?" Mary felt every eye in the room on her, felt Charlotte's hand squeeze hers in support, felt Minho's solid presence beside her. She could give the safe answer, could be diplomatic and appeasing, or she could be honest. "I bring truth," Mary said, meeting Jisoo's gaze directly. "Your son has spent years building walls around himself, becoming more weapon than man. I've seen past those walls to who he really is. I've seen his capacity for protection and justice, not just violence. I've seen him care about communities that the world has abandoned. And I've made him believe that maybe he could be more than what circumstances forced him to become." She took a breath, her voice gaining strength. "You're right that I investigated your organization. You're right that I uncovered illegal activities. But I also uncovered the truth about why those activities exist, about the gap between what the law promises and what it actually delivers to the people you protect. I'm not saying it's all justified. I'm saying it's more complicated than I wanted to believe." "And what about your career?" Jisoo pressed. "What about your ethics as a journalist?" "I'm publishing my story. All of it. The illegal activities and the humanitarian work. The violence and the protection. The complexity of an organization that operates outside the law because the law has failed the people it's supposed to serve." Mary lifted her chin. "I'm marrying Minho because I love him. But I'm not abandoning my integrity. I'm expanding it to include uncomfortable truths that don't fit neat narratives." Jisoo studied her for a long moment, then something that might have been approval flickered in her expression. "You have spine. But my son needs someone who won't bend just because he wants them to." She turned to Minho. "I approve the marriage. But on conditions. She signs a contract agreeing to certain confidentialities. She undergoes security training. And she proves her loyalty isn't just temporary infatuation." "Done," Minho said immediately. "Whatever you need." "I'm not done." Jisoo's gaze returned to Mary. "I also want to see the article before it publishes. Not to censor. To ensure accuracy. If you're going to tell our story, tell it correctly." Mary hesitated, her journalistic independence warring with the reality of her new position. Then she nodded. "Agreed. But I maintain final editorial control. If I feel you're trying to manipulate the narrative beyond factual corrections, the deal is off." "Fair." Jisoo stood, and everyone else stood with her. "Welcome to the family, Mary Thompson. Try not to get my son killed." After the meeting ended and the family departed, Mary collapsed onto the couch in Minho's study, adrenaline draining away and leaving her shaky. Charlotte sat beside her while Minho poured whiskey with hands that weren't entirely steady. "That was terrifying," Charlotte said. "Your mother is terrifying." "She likes you," Minho said, handing Mary a glass. "If she didn't, we'd have known within the first minute. The fact that she negotiated terms means she's willing to accept you into the family." "What about your cousin?" Mary asked. "Woo Jin looked like he wanted to kill me." "Woo Jin wants to be head of the family. He sees me as an obstacle and you as a weakness he can exploit." Minho settled beside her, his arm coming around her shoulders. "He's not wrong about the weakness part. You are my weakness. The question is whether I'm strong enough to protect you anyway. You saved Charlotte. You've kept me safe. I'd say you're doing pretty well." Mary leaned into his warmth, exhaustion finally catching up with her. "When do you want to get married?" "Tomorrow if possible. Next week at the latest." Minho's thumb traced circles on her shoulder. "The longer we wait, the more opportunities my enemies have to use you against me. Once you're my wife, you have the full protection of the family name. It changes the equation." "So romantic," Mary teased, but she understood the logic. "Fine. Next week. Small ceremony. Just family and close friends. And extremely tight security," Minho added. "I'm not taking any chances with your safety." The following days passed in a blur of wedding preparations, security briefings, and article revisions. Mary worked with her editor to craft a piece that was honest but fair, that showed the complexity of Minho's organization without glorifying or demonizing it. Jisoo reviewed it as promised, making only minor factual corrections, and seemed grudgingly impressed with Mary's balanced approach. Charlotte settled into her new apartment, a luxurious space in a secured building with round-the-clock security that she pretended to find annoying but clearly appreciated. She visited daily, helping Mary with wedding plans and slowly warming to Minho as she saw how he treated her sister. "He looks at you like you're the sun," Charlotte observed one afternoon as they selected flowers. "It's kind of nauseating actually, but also really sweet." "He's intense about everything," Mary said, but warmth bloomed in her chest. "Including me." That evening, Minho took Mary to dinner at an exclusive restaurant, the kind of place that required reservations months in advance but opened immediately for him. They were seated in a private room overlooking the city, and Mary felt herself relax for the first time in days. "Thank you," she said as they shared dessert. "For making this week bearable. For protecting Charlotte. For not being angry that I'm still publishing the article." "Why would I be angry? You promised truth and you're delivering it. I respect that." Minho reached across the table to take her hand. "Besides, I knew what I was getting when I fell in love with a journalist. Your integrity is part of what makes you extraordinary. You say the most romantic things," Mary smiled. "In the most dangerous settings." "Speaking of dangerous." Minho's expression turned serious. "I need to tell you something. About Wooden. My security team has been monitoring his communications. He's making moves, building alliances with rival families. I think he's planning something." Ice trickled down Mary's spine. "Planning what?" "I don't know yet. But he sees our wedding as an opportunity. Lots of family gathered in one place. Lots of potential chaos." Minho's grip tightened on her hand. "I've increased security for the ceremony. But I need you to promise me something. If anything happens, if there's any trouble at all, you get Charlotte and you run. You don't stay to help, you don't try to fight. You just run. I'm not leaving you in danger." "Mary." His voice turned pleading. "I can't focus on neutralizing threats if I'm worried about protecting you. Promise me. Promise you'll prioritize your safety and Charlotte's over everything else." Looking into his eyes, seeing genuine fear there, Mary reluctantly nodded. "I promise. But you better survive whatever he's planning. I'm not becoming a widow before I'm even a wife." "Deal." Minho pulled her close, kissing her with a desperation that spoke of all the things he wasn't saying, all the fears he was holding back. They returned to his house to find controlled chaos. Minho's security team had assembled in the main room, their expressions grim. Sungmin, Minho's head of security, approached with a tablet showing surveillance footage. "We have a problem, boss. Woojin met with the Choi family tonight. The same family that kidnapped Mary's sister. They're planning something for the wedding." Mary felt Minho go rigid beside her. "Details. They're going to try to take Mary during the ceremony. Use her as leverage to force you to step down as head of the family. Woojin becomes leader. The Choi family gets a favorable alliance, and you either comply or watch Mary die." Sungmin's voice was flat, professional. "We intercepted communications an hour ago. The attack is set for tomorrow." "Tomorrow is our wedding day," Mary said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the terror flooding her system. "We postpone," Minho said immediately. "We move you and Charlotte to a secure location until I've dealt with this threat." "No." The word came out stronger than Mary felt. "We don't postpone. We don't let them win. We get married tomorrow as planned, but we're ready for them. We turn their ambush into our trap." Sungmin and Minho both stared at her. "That's incredibly dangerous," Sungmin said. "Everything about this is dangerous. But I'm not spending the rest of my life running from threats. We face them. We win. We get married." Mary looked at Minho, seeing his internal war between protecting her and respecting her agency. "Unless you don't think I can handle it." "I think you can handle anything." Minho cupped her face, his expression fierce. "But asking you to walk into a trap, to use yourself as bait, Goes against every instinct I have. Good thing I'm not asking permission then. Mary's smile was sharp. This is happening. The question is whether you trust me enough to let me be part of the solution instead of just the problem. Minho looked at her for a long moment, then turned to Sungmin. What would we need to turn the wedding into a controlled operation? What followed was hours of planning. Extra security disguised as guests. Weapons hidden throughout the venue. Escape routes mapped and memorized. Charlotte was briefed and assigned her own security detail, and though she protested being left out of the main event, she grudgingly accepted the protective role. By the time they finished planning, dawn was breaking over Seoul. Minho sent everyone away and pulled Mary into his arms, his face buried in her hair. I'm terrified, he admitted quietly. The thought of anything happening to you makes me want to call this whole thing off, lock you in a bunker, and deal with Wu Jin without risking you at all. But you won't. 'Cause you trust me. Because you know I need to be part of this. Mary tilted her head back to look at him. We're partners, remember? In everything. That includes the dangerous parts. You're going to give me gray hair before I'm 40. Consider it payback for turning my orderly life into chaos. Mary kissed him softly. Now let's get a few hours of sleep. We have a wedding to survive. The wedding day arrived with deceptive calm. The venue was a beautiful garden estate outside Seoul, terraces and flowers and a view that should have made the day magical. Instead, Mary felt like she was preparing for battle as she dressed in her wedding gown, a stunning creation of silk and lace that Charlotte had helped her select. You look beautiful, Charlotte said, adjusting Mary's veil with shaking hands. And absolutely insane for going through with this. Runs in the family apparently. Mary squeezed her sister's hand. You remember the plan. At the first sign of trouble, I get to the car with my security team and we drive to the safe house. I don't be a hero. I don't try to help. I just survive. Charlotte's voice cracked. But Mary, what if something goes wrong? What if they hurt you? Then Minho burns down the world to get me back. He's good at that. Mary tried to sound confident despite her racing heart. I'll be fine. We'll both be fine. And tonight we'll laugh about how dramatic our wedding was. The ceremony was scheduled for sunset, giving them natural cover as shadows lengthened. Mary walked down the aisle on Charlotte's arm since their father was long gone, and every step felt like moving through water. The guests were a mix of family, Minho's business associates, and heavily armed security pretending to be normal wedding attendees. Minho waited at the altar in a black tuxedo that made him look like every dangerous fantasy Mary had ever had. When their eyes met, his expression softened into something so full of love and fear that it took her breath away. She reached him and took his hands, feeling them tremble slightly against hers. The officiant began the ceremony, his words washing over Mary as she focused on Minho's face, on the future they were trying to build, on the impossible love that had brought them to this moment. They were halfway through the vows when everything went wrong. Gunfire erupted from 3 different directions. Guests screamed and scattered. Minho's security team returned fire with practiced precision. But Mary only had eyes for Charlotte, who was being rushed away by her detail exactly as planned, disappearing toward the parking area and safety. Then rough hands grabbed Mary from behind, yanking her away from Minho. She fought on instinct, the self-defense training from the past week kicking in, but there were too many of them. A cloth pressed over her face, chemical sweet and suffocating. The world tilted and grayed. The last thing Mary saw before consciousness fled was Minho's face, twisted with rage and terror, as he fought through bodies to reach her. Then everything went black. Mary woke to pain radiating through her skull and zip ties cutting into her wrists. She was in some kind of warehouse, dim and echoing, bound to a chair. Across from her, Wu Jin sat in a matching chair like this was a casual conversation instead of a kidnapping. Good. You're awake. Wu Jin's smile was poison. I was worried we'd used too much chloroform. That would have ruined the whole plan. Where am I? Mary's voice came out rough. What do you want? What I've always wanted. Control of the Kong family. Minho has made us weak with his humanitarian nonsense. His codes of honor that limit profit. Under my leadership, we'll be what we were always meant to be. Powerful. Feared. Rich beyond measure. Woojin leaned forward. But Minho won't step down willingly. He needs proper motivation. That's where you come in. He'll kill you for this. He'll try. But first he'll have to choose. His position or your life. And we both know which one he'll choose. Woojin pulled out a phone, angling it toward Mary. Smile for the camera. Let's show your husband what's at stake. He recorded a short video of Mary bound and bleeding from a cut on her forehead she didn't remember getting, then sent it with a message Mary couldn't see. There. Now we wait. He has 1 hour to announce his resignation and transfer leadership to me, or I start removing your fingers one by one. Terror clawed up Mary's throat, but she forced it down. Minho was coming. She knew it with absolute certainty. She just had to survive until he got there. You won't get away with this, she said, buying time. The family council won't accept you as leader. Not like this. The family council will accept whoever has the power. And once Minho is gone, once his weakness is exposed, I'll have all the power. Ujin checked his watch. 55 minutes. I wonder how long it'll take before he breaks. What Woojin didn't know was that Mary's engagement ring contained a tracker. What he didn't know was that Minho's security team was already mobilizing, that they'd been tracking the vehicle that took her, that right now her husband was probably tearing through the city with murder in his eyes. Mary just had to keep Woojin talking. Tell me something. When did you decide to betray your family? When did you become the kind of man who kidnaps women on their wedding day? When I realized that loyalty to Minho meant staying weak. He's turned us into social workers instead of an empire. He protects people who can't pay. He refuses profitable opportunities because they conflict with his moral code. He's destroying everything our fathers built. Or maybe he's evolving it into something that can survive long-term. Fear only works until someone stronger comes along. But respect, loyalty, those last. Ujin laughed. You sound like him. No wonder he's obsessed with you. You've poisoned his mind with the same naive idealism that's weakening our organization. Before Mary could respond, the warehouse doors exploded inward. Minho stormed through with Sung Min and a full tactical team, their weapons raised, their intent lethal. Woojin grabbed Mary, a knife appearing at her throat as he used her as a shield. Stay back. Woojin's voice cracked with desperation. I'll kill her. I swear I'll do it. Minho stopped. His gun trained on his cousin with unwavering precision. His expression was colder than Mary had ever seen it, empty of everything except calculation and barely controlled rage. You made a mistake, Woojin. You touched what's mine. She's leverage. Nothing more. She's my wife. She's under family protection. You violated every code we have. Minho took a step forward. And now you're going to die. Kill me and she dies too. The knife pressed harder against Mary's throat, and she felt a trickle of blood run down her neck. Mary! Minho's eyes found hers. Close your eyes. She understood immediately. Trusted completely. Mary closed her eyes and dropped her full weight, becoming dead weight in Woojin's arms. He stumbled, his grip loosening just slightly. The knife moved away from her throat for a fraction of a second. Minho fired. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Woojin fell backward, releasing Mary as he clutched his shoulder where Minho's bullet had found its mark with surgical precision. Mary hit the ground hard, her zip ties snapping as Sung Min rushed forward to cut them free. Then Minho was there, pulling her into his arms, his hands frantically checking her for injuries beyond the cut on her forehead and the nick on her throat. Are you hurt? Did he touch you anywhere else? Mary, talk to me. I'm okay. Scared but okay. She clung to him, feeling him shake against her. You came for me. Always. Forever. Nothing in this world could stop me from coming for you. Minho crushed her against his chest, his face buried in her hair. I thought I'd lost you. When they took you, when I saw that video, I thought my heart would stop. Security had Woojin contained. Medical teams were arriving for both him and Mary. But Minho didn't let go, didn't stop holding her like she might disappear if he loosened his grip even slightly. We need to get you checked out, he finally said, pulling back just enough to see her face. You're bleeding and you were drugged, and I need to make sure everything is okay. I'm fine. I promise. Mary cupped his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. But we have an unfinished ceremony. I don't know about you, but I'd really like to actually get married today. Minho's laugh was shaky, relieved. You're insane. You were just kidnapped on our wedding day and you want to go back and finish the ceremony. I want to marry you. Today. Like we planned. I want Woojin and everyone who thought they could destroy us to know they failed. Mary kissed him softly. Unless you've changed your mind about wanting me. Never. Not in 1,000 years. Minho kissed her back deeper, claiming, let's go get married. Properly this time. 2 hours later, after medical checks and fresh makeup to cover Mary's injuries and a new dress because her original gown had been ruined, they stood once again at the altar in the garden venue. The sun had set, but the space was lit with thousands of candles, creating something magical from the chaos. Charlotte stood as maid of honor, still shaky but determined. Sungmin stood as best man, looking far more comfortable with a gun than with wedding traditions. The remaining guests were all family or security, everyone armed, everyone alert. But the moment felt sacred anyway. The officiant, bless him, picked up exactly where they'd left off before the attack. Do you, Kong Minho, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Minho's voice was strong, certain. I take her, I choose her, I claim her. In joy and in danger, in peace and in chaos, for every day we have left. She's mine and I'm hers, and nothing in this world will ever change that. And do you, Mary Thompson, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Mary looked at Minho, at the man who'd fought through gunfire to save her, who'd shown her vulnerability beneath strength, who'd made her believe in impossible love. I do. I choose you, I trust you, I love you beyond reason. You're my partner, my protector, my home. Forever. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Again. Minho pulled Mary close and kissed her thoroughly, possessively, while their unconventional wedding guests cheered and whistled. It wasn't the fairy tale wedding Mary had maybe imagined as a little girl. It was better. Real. Hard one. The reception was brief, just champagne and cake and dancing under the stars. Minho held Mary close as they swayed to music. His hand splayed possessively across her back, his eyes never leaving her face. I love you, he murmured against her temple. I know I've said it before, but after today, after almost losing you, I need you to understand how much. You're everything. My reason for everything. I love you too. Even when you're terrifying. Especially when you're terrifying actually. Mary smiled against his chest. What happens to Woojin? He's alive. He'll face family justice for his betrayal. But that's not your concern anymore. Tonight is about us. Minho pulled back to look at her. About starting our life together properly. They left the reception early, Minho's security team escorting them to a private jet that would take them somewhere tropical and private for a honeymoon away from the chaos. Charlotte hugged Mary tight, whispering promises to visit soon, to stop worrying, to let herself just be happy. On the plane, alone finally, Minho pulled Mary into his lap in the plush leather seat, his hands already working at the zipper of her dress. I need you, he said roughly. Need to feel you alive and safe and mine. Then take me. Mary kissed him deeply. Your wife. Your partner. Yours. What followed was passionate and desperate and perfect. They made love at 30,000 feet with the stars visible through the windows, claiming each other with touches and whispers and promises that would last forever. And when they finally collapsed together, sweat-slicked and satisfied, Mary knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. 6 months later, Mary stood in the bathroom of the home she now shared with Minho, staring at a positive pregnancy test with shaking hands. They'd been trying, had talked about starting a family, but seeing the proof made it real in a way that stole her breath. She found Minho in his study, reviewing the latest reports from his organization, which was slowly transitioning to legitimate business operations. He looked up when she entered, his expression immediately concerned. "What's wrong? You're pale." "Nothing's wrong. Everything is perfect, actually." Mary crossed to him, placing the test in his hands. "We're having a baby." Minho stared at the test, his expression cycling through shock, joy, terror, wonder. Then he was on his feet, his hands framing her face, his eyes wet. "We're having a baby. You're pregnant. We're going to be parents." "We're going to be parents," Mary confirmed, laughing and crying simultaneously. "Are you happy?" "Happy. I'm terrified and ecstatic and so in love with you I can barely function." He dropped to his knees, his hands gentle on her still flat stomach. "Hello, little one. I'm your father. I promise to protect you and your mother with everything I have. I promise to be better than my past. I promise to love you both more than life itself." Mary's hands threaded through his hair, her heart so full it ached. "I love you so much. Thank you for saving me, for choosing me, for building this impossible, beautiful life with me. Thank you for seeing me, for not running when you should have, for making me believe I was worth redemption." Minho stood, pulling her close. "You saved me first, remember? That night at the gala when you called me out on my behavior, when you challenged me to be better. That's when everything changed. When I slapped you and you threatened me with the most inappropriately sexy thing anyone's ever said. Once I'm inside you, the only thing you'll remember is wanting more," Minho quoted with a dangerous smile. "Still true, by the way." "Dangerously true," Mary agreed, pulling him down for a kiss that promised later celebrations. "But right now we need to tell Charlotte. She's going to lose her mind." The next several months passed in a haze of happiness and preparation. Charlotte did indeed lose her mind with excitement, immediately planning baby showers and buying tiny clothes. Jisoo, surprisingly, became protective and helpful, sharing wisdom about pregnancy and motherhood that Mary treasured. The family rallied around them, and Mary found herself part of something larger than she'd ever expected. Her article had published to significant acclaim and controversy, sparking important conversations about justice, legality, and the gaps the system left that allowed organizations like Minho's to thrive. She'd received death threats and job offers in equal measure, eventually accepting a position at an international news agency that let her continue investigative work while maintaining her ethical standards. Minho had accelerated his organization's transformation, using his power and connections to create legitimate businesses that still protected the communities they'd always served. It was slow, dangerous work, but he was committed to building something their child could be proud of. The baby arrived on a rainy autumn evening, a healthy daughter with Minho's dark eyes and Mary's stubborn spirit. They named her Grace, after Mary's mother, with the middle name Ji-hai after Minho's mother. And when Minho held his daughter for the first time, when Mary saw the fierce love and protection transform his expression, she knew that every dangerous choice, every terrifying moment, every impossible decision had led them exactly where they needed to be. "She's perfect," Minho whispered, his finger held in Grace's tiny fist. "Just like her mother." "She's going to be trouble," Mary said, exhausted but happy. "Just like her father. Then she'll be exactly what this world needs." Minho leaned over to kiss Mary softly. "Thank you. For this. For her. For choosing the impossible and making it real. Thank you for proving that monsters can be redeemed, that love can survive in darkness, and that sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the right one." Mary watched her husband with their daughter, this powerful man reduced to gentleness by 7 pounds of infant. "I love you. Both of you. My impossible family." 5 years later, Mary sat at her desk working on her latest investigation while Grace played nearby with her younger brother, Min-jae, who'd arrived 2 years after his sister. Through the window, she could see Minho in the garden with both children, teaching them about the plants he'd started growing. his laughter carrying on the breeze. Charlotte visited that afternoon with her own fiancé, a kind man who worked in hospital administration and treated her like she was precious. The family had expanded, had evolved, had become something none of them could have predicted that night at the gala when a journalist had slapped a Mafia boss and changed both their lives forever. "You did good," Charlotte said, watching Minho play with the children. "Both of you built something real from impossible circumstances." "We did," Mary agreed. "It wasn't easy. It required trust and risk and choosing each other every single day, even when it was terrifying. But you'd do it again." Mary thought about that night on the balcony when Minho had looked at her like she was salvation and damnation intertwined. Thought about every dangerous moment, every terrifying choice, every impossible situation they'd survived together. Thought about the life they'd built from chaos and love and stubborn determination to prove that broken people could heal each other. "In a heartbeat," she said. "I'd choose him every single time." That evening, after Charlotte left and the children were finally asleep, Mary and Minho stood on their terrace overlooking the city. He pulled her into his arms, his touch as possessive now as it had been that first night, his love deeper for having survived everything that tried to destroy it. "Do you remember what I said to you at the gala?" he asked, his lips brushing her temple. "After you slapped me. Once I'm inside you, the only thing you'll remember is wanting more," Mary quoted. Inappropriately sexy, dangerously arrogant, and unfortunately accurate. "Still accurate," Minho confirmed, his hands sliding down her back. "Still want more. Still want everything. Still want you in ways that should probably concern both of us. Good thing I want the same." Mary turned in his arms, kissing him with the easy intimacy of years together. "My dangerous husband. My redeemed monster. My impossible love. My brave journalist. My fearless wife. My salvation." Minho kissed her deeper. "Thank you for slapping me at that gala. Best thing that ever happened to me." They made love under the stars, their bodies moving together with practiced ease, their hearts beating in sync like they'd done for years. And when they finally collapsed together, satisfied and complete, Mary thought about how a single moment of courage, of refusing to accept the world as it was, had transformed everything. She'd gone to that gala planning to expose a monster. Instead, she'd found a man, had loved him, had married him, had built a family with him, had proven that love could survive anything if you were brave enough to choose it, to fight for it, to believe in it even when the whole world said it was impossible. Outside, Seoul glittered like scattered diamonds. Inside, two impossible people held each other close and dreamed about tomorrow. About the life they'd continue building. About the love that had survived darkness and danger and doubt to become something unbreakable. "Once I'm inside you, the only thing you'll remember is wanting more." Minho had said that first night, a threat and a promise intertwined. And he'd been right. But what he hadn't known, what neither of them had known, was that more would mean everything. Lifetime. Family. A love that transformed monsters into men and journalists into believers. That was their story. Dark and dangerous and impossibly real. And they wouldn't change a single terrifying, beautiful moment of it.